I want to bring in Jon Meacham, Rogers Chair in the American Presidency at Vanderbilt, who occasionally advises President Biden on historical matters and major speeches. I'm so glad to talk to you today. And I'm wondering, Jon, if you find solace in the fact that today constitutional norms ruled, the will of the people was affirmed without violence, without question, or are you more concerned that this is just a brief respite?
Well, I think both can be true. I do find it reassuring that the peaceful transfer of power between rival parties, which first happened in this country in 1801 on March 4th, when Thomas Jefferson walked to his inauguration and gave an inaugural address in which he talked about how every difference of opinion is not a difference of principle, but there can be differences of principle. And I would have a lot more solace if there had been a certification of Vice President Harris if she had won, and that if the Republican Party had decided to follow the constitutional norms as well. So it's a solemn day, I think. It was for a long time not a day any of us paid much attention to. Richard Nixon in 1961 had to certify his defeat. Al Gore graciously did so in 2001. And Mike Pence, whom you mentioned a moment ago, really deserves, again, the thanks of the nation, I believe. I don't think Vice President Pence and I agree on a great deal of policy, but he stood in the breach, as did Speaker Pelosi 4 years ago, and resisted importunings. And believe me, it's really, really hard to tell a president of the United States, particularly one who has elevated you to the vice presidency, it's hard to tell him no. And Mike Pence did. And I think that's a reminder of something that is going to be really important for all of us to keep in mind and to hope for and work for as much as we can over the next 4 years, which is, it's not that institutions guard democracy, it's that the people in charge of those institutions are the ones who guard democracy. It's not the Senate, it's senators. It's not the courts, it's judges of particular courts. And so, as so many of us head into a 48-month period here where the result was not what we had hoped for, I think it's important to bear in mind that it worked today, but the weight of it working today was on a party that of which I'm not a member. I'm not a Democrat, but the Democratic Party did not try to undo an election and using violent means. And so it's not as reassuring as it could be, but it's a step in the right direction.
So can we talk about not just having principles, but being willing to demonstrate principles? You mentioned Mike Pence, Al Gore, much closer election, 36 days waiting to see who would be the next president of the United States. It was not Al Gore, obviously. It was George W. Bush, and he had to preside over that as the vice president of the United States. Joe Biden today in his op-ed said he will be there for the inauguration of Donald Trump, a man he believes is a danger to democracy, something Donald Trump did not do for him. How important are these very visual symbols of principle?
Well, there's a moment in the letters of Flannery O'Connor, which is probably not where you thought I was going to start.
It's not.
In which Mary McCarthy, the Roman Catholic writer, is talking about how the Mass, the Eucharist, is a wonderful symbol. And Ms. O'Connor rears up and says, well, if it's just a symbol, then to hell with it. It's the center of existence for me. Symbols only work when they are linked to substance. President Biden being at the inauguration of President Trump is a symbolic moment linked to a substantive devotion to the Constitution and to the American way of governance. And so President Biden's being there is, and as you mentioned, I help him when I can. He's my friend, so take this for what it's worth. He will be entirely in character and in a substantive way demonstrating that we can transfer power back and forth according to the will of the people. Again, President Biden's not on trial here. In many ways, it's President Trump because of the way he has acted in the past. This is not a hysterical kind of set your hair on fire afternoon for people who don't like President Trump to sort of bang on our high chairs. I'm not doing that. I am basing my view about that we're waiting and watching carefully based on what President Trump has done in the past. It's not prospective. He has demonstrated that he has too little regard for the Constitution and for norms that a lot of us think are important. Other people don't think they're important. And a lot of those folks voted for President Trump. And guess what? That's what democracy is. You know, it's not just when you win that you get to appreciate democracy. The point of it is that there are rules, we obey the rules, and we battle these things out, and then we do it again.
So let me ask you to put on your hat as someone who helps craft political messaging from time to time. Kamala Harris, we have just learned, she's meeting with Hakeem Jeffries right now, but she's going to come out and say a few words about today, I presume, about what we just saw happen today. And I wonder what you think might be a message for the country, a country for many, as you say, the 75 million people who voted for her, who are concerned about what the next 4 years can bring, what she might say today on this of all days, January 6th.
Yeah. Well, as somebody, let me answer it as a historian and a citizen. I think this is a case where democracy has prevailed. I think that those of us who believe in the constitutional order, however imperfect, and Lord knows it's imperfect, have to be willing to lose graciously. And you also have to be willing to win graciously. And so I think that today is a sign that an extraordinary number of the American people continue to believe in a world in which you can win graciously and lose graciously. Again, Vice President Harris is not on trial. Leader Jeffries is not on trial. It's the folks who tried to overturn the last election who have to prove to the rest of us that it was an aberration and not a pattern. And we just don't know yet.
Jon Meacham, every day I like to be surprised, and you are, whenever you come on, seem to be the one who does it, so I thank you for
Flannery
that.
O'Connor.
I'm going to have to go back and do some reading.
On the certification, I want you to put that one on the coffee mug.
Did not have that on the bingo card today, Jon Meacham. Thank you so much.